Hi, it's Carly Ops at the University of Arizona. We're taking a look at single subject research designs and comparative designs. And we've looked at the GAST text, chapter 12. And I just thought I would point out a few things in some of the assigned readings. One of those assigned readings is from the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis, 2010. The effects of exergaming on physical activity among inactive children in a physical education classroom. It's Vogel, Miltenberger, Graves, and Kohler. And it's an interesting study where they're taking a look at using exergaming, which is, I think, let's see what they used in this study as exergaming. Dependent variables. Where's the independent variable? There they are. Dance Dance Revolution on a Sony PlayStation, and gamer size, and Three Rivers Game Cycle. I don't know that one. What else do they have? Kids had access to electronic sports. Dogfighter Simulator, Cat Eye Virtual Bike, Nintendo Wii Sports Baseball, and Nintendo Tennis, and Nintendo Boxing, Fitness XR Board, and Interactive 3 Kick. Okay. So you've heard suggestions that kids can get a lot of physical activity out of those games, and this was a study that set out to take a look at whether or not they got more activity out of those games than they did out of going to PE. Okay. And I'll leave you to read the study if you're interested. But the real thing I want to look at here quickly is the simplicity of the graphs and the fact that they ran this alternating treatments design. This is an alternating treatments design. You can see how quickly they were able to run this thing. Okay, that they had, and now their measure was minutes of PE. If you read the study, you're going to see that that was a really problematic measure, and frankly, somebody should redo this. They might want to you could redo this study. Interesting study, probably has some interesting implications, but it could be redone kind of with a better measure, because in measuring minutes, they found that a lot of minutes were lost in PE just to getting organized and to transition, and you lost fewer minutes in when you were transitioning to exergaming, right? And there was less confusion and there was less to do. But you see, they have kids here, and they have it in sessions. Now, could it have been possible to run these? They run this by sessions. It looks to me like it's really days, because you see how it was on this day or in this session they had here, and then they mixed it up. They had 2 in a row of exergaming on days 5 and 6, 2 in a row on 8 and 9. For each kid, they mixed it up. So this randomization across these kids is really important in terms of the ordering of these intervention conditions. Okay, they could have run them on the same day, say 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and just switched them back and forth. But they didn't do that. They had a set time in the day available for either exergaming or PE. This study, simple, ran it quickly, did it in 10 days. Pretty amazing. This kid looks like there was some attrition here. They only had the student for the 6 days, but they included the data anyways. I think this one makes it pretty clear how these alternating treatment designs are organized and how they can be quick and effective. Let's take a look at another study from Focus on Autism and Other Developmental Disabilities. It is the effects of weighted vests on engagement of children with developmental delays and autism. It's Reichow, Barton, Sewell, Good, and Mark Woolery, who does a lot of work in this area. And if you are familiar with sensory integration therapy, you probably know that there is some controversy about the effectiveness of sensory integration therapy. And so these folks decided to get some empirical data, whether or not that's truly available, or a possibility you can judge for yourself by reading the study. But they set up multiple conditions, and I know that one of our students commented that they read the study and thought it was really well put together, really highly organized, and darn it, it's Woolery's involved, so it probably ought to be. They also ran an alternating treatments design and ran it on days, even though this says sessions. I'm guessing this is days. You can see the way that they mixed it across days, right? And they collected a lot of data, all right? They had 3 different conditions. They had like a baseline type of condition that ran throughout, which was no vest. They had the kid with a vest, but with no weights in the vest. And then they had the kid with the weighted vest. Okay? Same kid, but under all 3 conditions. And they collected behavior on child engagement, stereotypic behavior, and problem behavior. One of the things I want you to notice on this graph that we're going to look at when we look at graphs, creating our own graphs, is they have the 0 right on the baseline. You lose your data. You can't tell where lines are. You can't tell how data is connected if you have the 0 on the baseline. I will teach you how to move that 0 off the baseline when we create graphs. However, you can see that they also ran this study fairly quickly. So that you can run one of these alternating treatments designs quickly, avoid a lot of threats, not have to worry about having a baseline phase, not having to worry about keeping kids from starting the intervention, and boom, get it done right from the beginning. All right. So this is for Tom. That's Tom's graph. Here we have Bert's graph. Here we have Sam's graph. Okay. The graphs got a little messy. These cases, they do have a baseline for these kids with no vest. All right. You can see in the other situation, they put the baseline in with the other 2 conditions. So in this case, it was another situation where the behavior is completely reversible. The level of engagement, stereotypic behavior, and problem behavior, they're assuming the problem behavior is completely reversible. That's certainly something that's questionable, because once a child experiences over time lower levels of problem behavior, then they're more likely to understand how their new behavior that they're exhibiting is reinforced and is working for them in the environment. One of the more interesting things to read about this study is how they did social validity. Social validity was assessed by having 23 graduate students who are working on their master's degree in early childhood special education watch video clips of the kids and the degrees to which having no vest, a weighted vest, or an unweighted vest had an influence on their behavior, which I thought was really interesting. Okay, so you can see alternating treatments design with the baseline included in the collection of the data on the other conditions and with a separate baseline. I'd encourage you to take a look at both of these studies. Just flip through them, flip through the other ones too, and pick one out. Pick out one study though, and really spend some time with it.